Hi everyone, I'm Fran Drescher, your SAG-AFTRA National President, and I want to welcome you to our new interview talk show. We're going to be talking about issues that matter, lifestyle issues, things that affect directly our members, and we hope that you enjoy, and I hope that we get more people to watch. You invite your friends, and each one teach one. We also have two very esteemed guests with us. I'm working with both of them. I have over the years. We have something very much in common that we share, which is that we are all environmentalists. So that's a very big deal, and because it's Earth Day, we thought that it would be a great opportunity for me to introduce you to these great change makers. My dear friend Ed Begley Jr., who's a very celebrated actor. You may know him from St. Elsewhere. You may know him from many other performances like Spinal Tap, which we were in together.
You're so good in that.
And you were also wonderful on The Nanny.
Oh,
Which I was
that.
very grateful that you're on, and I'm sure you've done millions of other things, but mostly we keep running into each other when we're at all of these big green events and things.
Yeah, health-related events, wonderful events that you put on.
That brings us to my next guest, which is the wonderful Dianna Cohen, who is the founder and president of the Plastic Pollution Coalition. Now, you're doing a very interesting program that I'm very excited about called Flip the Script. This would impact our members specifically.
So it's called Flip the Script on plastic and film and television. And the focus is on not just looking behind the scenes at production and how much plastic or single-use plastic is used, but also looking at what's happening in the storyline within the narrative of the story. So what we've been doing is we started the project by commissioning a preliminary report from the Norman Lear Center, the Media Center at the Annenberger School of Communication at USC here in Los Angeles.
A little name dropping.
Yeah, and they took a look at the prevalence of single-use plastic versus reusables on the top 32 television shows, including shows in Spanish on Univision and Telemundo, and then produced a report on that. And what we see from this first report is that each of the shows, each episode has on average 23 pieces of single-use plastic per episode. And we're also seeing that each of these series have at least one, what we call a mass plastic event. So that is a party or some kind of event within the show, within the narrative of the show, that has so much plastic you actually can't count all the pieces in the sequence.
Now, can I ask you to explain to everybody here, what is considered single-use plastic?
Sure. So single-use plastic would be plastic bags, plastic bottles, plastic straws, plastic cups, plastic to-go containers for food. It would also include polystyrene or styrofoam takeaway containers. It's pretty much all of the stuff that has become even more prevalent in our lives in the last couple of years thanks to the pandemic.
Yeah, when you drink a beverage bottle of water or soda or whatever it may be, and it's in a plastic bottle, you finish it in 10 minutes, and the bottle is here for 1,000 years. That is completely unsustainable. I also want to bring Ed into the conversation because really, Ed has been one of the first most outspoken celebrity activists in Hollywood. What was it, Ed, that got you to make this your passion? What was the thing, the switch?
You know, for most people, it's either some negative thing or some positive thing that motivates them. For me, it was both. The positive was I was a Boy Scout, so I got to see nature up close and personal, and I liked it. I thought, this is worth protecting. That was a good thing. My dad, it was a good thing. He was a conservative that liked to conserve. We turned off the lights, turned off the water, saved string, saved tin foil. You know, he was the son of Irish immigrants. He had lived through the Great Depression, so he was of that mind. So that was the good influence. The bad one was pretty bad. I grew up in smoggy LA, and the smog in the valley was horrible, choking smog. But just for a second, celebrate a little bit of good news. We have 4 times the cars since 1970 when I started, millions more people, but a fraction of the smog.
4 times the
cars, the automobile.
But a fraction of the smog. And what do you attribute that to?
Because everything that we hoped would work did work. smog control devices on cars, catalytic converters finally, cleaner power plants, cleaner public transportation, all that stuff we thought. They just had little things and big things that all added up to cleaner air. But we've done a great job with LA at large. You can see the mountains nearly, every day of the year. Used to be you'd have to get up to Moore Park to see the Santa Monica Mountains. You'd have to get to Rinaldi to see the northern part of the San Fernando Valley. Now you can see the mountains and the air is much, much cleaner.
And what do you think of like biofuel? What's that?
That's another tool in the toolbox. That if you make biofuels from not the corn, save the corn so you and I can eat it, but the corn stalk, you can make it from cellulose. Most people don't know that. You can make it from ag waste. So biofuels is one way to go. Electric cars, one of the great things about electrics is there's an infrastructure all over America of electric lines. You can just kind of put a charger somewhere that you like at a shopping mall or near a restaurant. And Elon Musk has done that. So when I go cross country now, I don't have to fly. I have the option of driving. When I go to Texas or I go to Albuquerque recently, I just do it in my electric car, and it's quite pleasant.
And is there a concern about the batteries in these cars?
There is.
Okay.
There's a concern about any battery. Now keep in mind every car out there on PCH right now has a battery in it. It's a 12-volt battery, and those don't go in landfills anymore. The shops are instructed by EPA rules to bring the batteries back. They take them to a facility somewhere and they recycle them.
Okay.
Yeah. But now keep in mind
that's not the electric car battery, right?
That's just a regular battery.
That's
but now the good
car.
thing about the electric car batteries, they're lithium ion, as you probably know. There's no big toxic pit of lithium ion batteries. They get remanufactured and reused. There's not a problem yet with them. So we're doing very good with the way we're dealing with lithium ion batteries and things like that. But there's other ways to get around. The most energy efficient form of ground transportation is a bicycle. You've probably heard that, and it's true. You can go 30 miles on an ear of corn and a bowl of rice. So that's pretty energy efficient.
When I was in Amsterdam recently, well, pre-COVID, I have no sense of time anymore.
None of us do.
I mean, I'd been there many times before, but for some reason I really took note of how quiet the city was because most of the people use bicycles.
They're on a bike everywhere.
So you don't really hear car engines or car horns or anything like that. It's just so pleasant.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one other thing. You have your own product line, actually, and I'm the founder of Cancer Schmancer. We have a very progressive program called Detox Your Home, and we teach you how to start reading labels and how to start using eco-friendly products or making your own, which I do all the time.
Sure.
And it's much, much cheaper and more eco-friendly because whatever bottle you're putting it into, you can just keep reusing and you keep filling it up with rubbing alcohol or it's white vinegar, and I put in peppermint oil because that's antibacterial, and you can put in lemon juice, or you can make an abrasive using a baking soda.
Baking soda, yeah.
All of these things are wonderful tips, and so you came up with a product line to help the consumer feel confident that what they were buying is not going to have a negative impact on the health of their family, their pets,
right,
or the environment. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I would be out there with friends around the country protesting with a sign. We're all carrying signs stopping the hazardous waste site. The worst hazardous waste site is not near their home that we're protesting. It's in their home, under their sink. So we all
home is the most toxic place we spend the most time in, and ironically have the most control over. More toxic than living across the street from an oil refinery.
Yeah, it's very bad. So to get that stuff out of your life and out of your house. When I was broke, I would use vinegar and water and what have you, and baking soda.
And it works great.
It works great. And I do have products, and they're fine. But any of those good, like 7th generation or Ecos, are all good products. But use baking soda, use, vinegar and water, all that stuff, peppermint and all that stuff. Use it on your plants too, a little cayenne pepper.
We have to kind of unlearn everything that we've learned. And, getting back to Dianna, we did a wonderful webinar together with Kira Sedgwick. And one of the things that I had tried to explain is that the 20th century, particularly around the mid-century, we weren't such a disposable society. We actually repurposed almost everything, from a chock full of nuts can of coffee to a cigar box.
Yep.
Everything became something. Right. We had to be taught to become a throwaway society. We had to be taught to be brainwashed into thinking that this is modern and this is contemporary. And it kind of began with the vending machine, because when the vending machine for hot coffee was invented, and you can be in a hallway in any building of your office building and get a hot cup of coffee. People literally did not know what to do with this perfectly good coffee cup after they finished the coffee. And so they realized that we have to teach these people that throwing away a perfectly good cup is modern and contemporary, and we'll even put like a trash bin next to it. We'll do PSA commercials to show how modern Americans are, because you can get a hot cup of coffee and drink it, and then what do? You throw it away. Perfectly good cup. So we were brainwashed into that, and now we have to unlearn it, don't we?
We do. I feel like the millions and millions of dollars in marketing that have been spent to not only take the responsibility for plastic pollution and all of these things and put them onto the public and onto individuals, that's massive. It's a massive campaign. It was created by industry. It started with Keep America Beautiful, and that whole program, and the crying Indian PSA, and the tagline at the end of that PSA is, people start pollution, people can stop it. And so that was really very strategic campaign that was created by industry to move the responsibility for pollution away from themselves, the creators of it, and onto the public. And so when you're up against something like that, what we need to do, and I think what is important and interesting about Flip the Script on plastic in film and television, in entertainment and popular culture across the board, is that we are reframing the narrative. And the narrative and our work become focused on what are the solutions to this? What should we be doing instead?
Great.
It was back in 1965, I think, that I really started as an environmentalist. Why? They got my attention because they took my money away, Fran. I'd get 2 cents for the little Coke bottle, the 7-Up bottle. I get a nickel for the Big Dad's root beer bottle, the big 7-Up bottle. All those 2 cents and nickels, that was my money. I just had to take it in the market. Suddenly that money was gone because I had these newfangled things called no deposit, no return bottles. It was about, I think it was 1965. And then later came the plastic. And now, you know, after just a few years of that, pretty soon I'd go to get a greeting card or a pack of gum. They put it in a plastic bag. And now we have this incredible avalanche of plastic in our oceans, in our bodies. We ingest, what is it, a credit card's worth of plastic every week. We ingest
credit card. We're
worth of
swallowing
plastic.
a whole credit card every single week.
Little bits of microplastic every day. It all adds up to about that amount a week, about a credit card's worth of plastic that we're ingesting. We pass some of it through, but some of it we do not pass through. They found it in people's blood recently, didn't they?
Yeah, there's a new report that it's been found in blood, microplastics, and we don't actually know what that means. Well, we also found it in vitro, so you're finding it both in the placenta, both on the mother's side and the baby's side of the placenta. But, you know, there are microplastics in everything. It's in beer, it's in honey, it's in water.
In fish flesh.
Yeah, it's in water, both the top 25 brands of bottled water. It's also in tap water samples from around the world. It's coming back to us in everything. It's being ingested by the entire, you know, marine chain. And there are a lot of people in the world who depend on fish or wildlife from the ocean for protein, and it's in that. So,
and you can live life without it, with saran wrap, with glass containers. There's a way to...
I got news for you. This planet could live very well without human.
Oh, you're probably right. We'll find that out soon enough.
We're like the worst. What the hell? Every other species works with nature, and we're the only ones that work against it.
But we also haven't had enough time. I feel like the planet and everything else on the planet besides human beings, you know, nature doesn't create any waste. Something has evolved that uses every piece of everything. We're just going to be that funny blip that was only here for a short amount of time, extracted and used up every single thing, and then poof, we were gone. I mean, no, I don't want to say that, because I hope that we're not.
That is our fate, because we function right now literally like a cancer. We don't want to die, and yet we destroy our host.
The coral reef right now, the Great Barrier Reef is just in worse shape than ever. Coral reefs around the world
It's
are
heartbreaking.
on the way out. It's just, there's a web of life that supports us all. You can be derisive about spotted owls or snow leopards, but we need all those little rivets in the airplane so it can fly. How many rivets can you lose in an airplane before it plummets? You tell me, 6, 16, 23. At some point, you lose 23 rivets, the fuselage is going to come apart and we're going to crash. That's where we're at now. We're losing plant and animal species every day, and we think we're not connected to them. Boy, are we ever.
But we as consumers are the ones that are driving this. I know that I'm not honestly as maybe fair as Dianna is, who's blaming it on the big business advertisers who give so much messaging to Americans and citizens around the world. But we're really the biggest consumers on the planet. And we're so brainwashed by this barrage of Madison Avenue campaigning that it's very hard to see the forest for the trees. However, the jig is up. It's like, how long are you going to blame your parents for giving you a lousy childhood? At some point, you got to take control of your life. You got to grow up and say, okay, they did their best or they were horrible people, but now I have to live my life my way. I have to make different choices. I can't have them rule me anymore. And we are actually at that tipping point now. Listen, if everybody stopped drinking cola today, they'd stop making it tomorrow. It wouldn't matter who was in the White House. It wouldn't matter what legislation was passed. It wouldn't matter because the bottom line is the bottom line. So we as the consumers really wield a lot of power just with our, purchasing. And it's great to exercise this kind of power. Tell these guys on Wall Street and on Madison Avenue and in big business that, we don't want their stuff anymore if it's going to be impacting our health and the health of the planet.
I think that's what's really important about this whole idea of changing what's happening in Hollywood, Bollywood, in entertainment. It's that you guys, in the shows and the films that you're in, you are creating and demonstrating to other people a way to be with your characters, in your actions.
We're the biggest influencers on the planet,
you are,
right?
You are. And so that is what is so interesting when you see the conflict between, for example, product placement by these big companies in entertainment of products that are damaging our health and the planet. And there has to be, we have to have kind of a disconnect not to recognize that. But I think another thing that's really important about all this and what Ed was talking about, what you are talking about, is that when I look at plastic pollution and everything that I've learned just about plastic in general, as you look at the entire life cycle, plastic, 95% of plastics are made from petroleum and oil and fossil fuels. So really, we're all talking about the same thing. We're talking about a cycle to create plastics that pollutes us from extraction on the wellhead through manufacturing, our use of single-use products, and then instantly it's a waste management issue. Oftentimes it's burnt or incinerated with these different lovely terms like waste to energy or waste to fuel. It all sounds really good. But what it does is along the entire course, it releases greenhouse gases and it releases dioxins and particulate pollution, and it poisons us. And it poisons, in particular, BIPOC communities, so brown, indigenous, people of color communities who oftentimes live in the neighborhoods or the areas or across the street from the Exxon Mobils on the Gulf Coast in Houston, in Louisiana and Baton Rouge, St. James Parish, where they're building Formosa Plastics, or they're building all these big companies. And many of the people I've met who are these staunch advocates, who are activists, who are fighting for and to protect the health of themselves and their communities, are really up against a kind of behemoth monster that controls all the energy on the planet that we live on, or primarily controls the energy on this is not talking about sun.
Right.
But it's really important to back up enough to see that whole picture. And when you see that whole picture and you realize that we're being poisoned, we're poisoning ourselves, that is enough, I think, to create the change at those different, crossroads, those different levels.
We have to, as a nation, get out of the chemical industry and agrochemicals. I think people have to start questioning what they're eating, because you are what you eat, and whether you eat meat or not, whether you're vegetarian or vegan, it doesn't matter. There's just so much wrong with what happened during the Industrial Revolution and through the 20th century for the almighty dollar. I think that it's time that we got away from greed and got into more green. which is why I started the Green Council that I'm very happy to say you guys are both participants in. Green Council is a very progressive program that I put into the SAG-AFTRA union, and I wanted to help pivot our industry towards eco-responsible entertainment. So that's what Green Council is. And we're gathering all the major entities, from celebrities to NGOs like PPC and Cancer Schmancer and Plastic Pollutions and Environmental Working Group, EMMA, all of those, and then associations, all of that. And we'll come together as a giant entity. I think it's very important that we step up. And as I said, and as we were talking before, we are the largest influencers as an industry. That's why it's so important, your Flip the Script program. And she's also marrying up Bollywood to Hollywood, because those are two major film industries that have a tremendous impact on millions, if not billions of people. So it's really important that we start leveraging that kind of reach for the greater good, and particularly for our environment. Tell me about this glass that you have on the table here.
This is an insulated stainless steel cup. I really like it because it keeps my drinks hot and cold.
Do you carry that in your purse, that kind of straw?
I do. I carry it in my purse, and normally I carry it slid into a little pouch I have that's got a bamboo fork, knife, spoon, and chopsticks.
You gave that to me as a gift, and it's wonderful. And you were the first one that brought to my attention how straws are not recyclable, and how much they, pollute the oceans. And then we saw that compelling video about the poor little turtle who had the straw stuck in his nose, and how turtles see plastic bags floating in the water.
I think it's food.
Yeah, they think it's food. They think that it's jellyfish, and then they end up perishing. And it's all because of humans. And here on the beach, when you take a walk on the beach, it's the things that wash up. I mean, they should outlaw plastic children's beach toys, because they always end up getting washed up at shore.
But take that one step further up the chain. Do we actually want our kids to be playing with plastic toys, especially soft, mushy ones, which means they have high levels of phthalates in them to make them soft and mushy?
No.
And we know that that's an endocrine disruptor. And if kids are playing with them at home before they even get to the beach, they might be putting them in their mouth. Or, I mean, our skin is our largest organ on our body, and we're touching things with it all the time. It's also, the chemicals in plastic like bisphenols, BPA, are also used in receipt paper and thermal paper, and you absorb it through your hands.
Wow.
It's an endocrine disruptor, so that means it's been linked to a bunch of health issues, including diabetes and obesity, but also breast cancer, brain cancer, prostate cancer.
Yeah, it makes me sad and almost depressed, but that's why I think I decided to do something about it, because if you don't, what's your purpose for being? Why are you here if not to protect this glorious natural world and your home, our home?
Fran, I really appreciate your Detox Your Home, and I feel like Ed's been detoxing his home for years, and
he used
sharing
to
that
say,
and
he
explaining
made me
that.
feel guilty about not saving rainwater. It's like, oh
Don't
my
ever
God, it
feel-
rains here once a year, but I gotta get that bucket out.
You do plenty. Don't feel guilty, no matter what anybody does. You do great.
Oh, you old softy, you've gotten soft in your older.
have.
You're cutting people slack.
I am.
Oh, good.
I've gotten a little more reasonable.
But I also feel like it's the same thing, though, about, making a commitment to try and live plastic free. Nobody's perfect. You do the best you can. And
Right.
every day I just wake up and I think this is kind of a fun challenge. I have to take it. I don't know why I wake up feeling really positive about it, but I feel like the more we help people see the true impact of our use of plastics and single-use plastic, the more they understand how it may be impacting their lives, their health, the health of their family, people that they love. And the more that we empower people to create policy and legislation that will move us away from that to more refillable, reusables, and we're seeing that happen, the better position we're going to be in. So, I feel really good about it. I think we're going in the right direction, and we've seen a big upswing in people understanding and becoming conscious that there's a problem.
And also, do you have an opinion on like reverse osmosis or cleaning up the water that comes into the home?
I have a whole house water filtration system. It's called Life Source, and it's very good. It's basically a really big charcoal filter. It's as big as like a water heater. It's about this tall off the ground there, and it works very well. You don't have to change the filter, but every like decade or so, it really does a good job. It has a backflush, and that water comes out of the backflush to clean out the filter. I use that to irrigate my fruit trees. And I have gray water that goes out to the fruit trees in the backyard. And as you mentioned, rainwater.
What is gray water?
Gray water comes from your laundry room and then from your bath and shower area. And so that water isn't what they call black water, which would be from a toilet or from a garbage disposal in the sink. That has lots of too much food in it to clean out. But the gray water is fairly clean. It's definitely clean enough to go directly without any holding tank or anything out to fruit trees. It goes straight out to the fruit trees to a mulch pit, and then the fruit trees get their water from that, and that's enough water. You don't have to put a drop of water ever on your fruit trees, ever.
Wow, that's great.
It gets all its water from the gray water.
It's relatively new, though, that you're able to use gray water in
Exactly.
that way.
They wouldn't permit it
changed
for
the
you.
law recently.
Because they were afraid of just what was happening. Some people were putting gray water in sprayers, were spraying out into, and a dog had come up and start drinking from the sprayer, and that's really coming from somebody's shower. You know, that could get the dog sick. You know, you didn't want that above ground kind of spraying. So when they figured it out, you could do it below ground, below grade, like fruit trees and what have you, going to the root system, things like that, then they permitted it. Otherwise, there's a hazard to it. There's different, pathogens and what have you in gray water coming from a laundry room or from a bathtub.
I see. So it's good to mention that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is also good that we try and think about our precious water.
Exactly. There's many ways to save it.
And I hope that we can support regenerative farming too.
Definitely.
I wish that the Farm Bill supported farmers that are willing to convert their farms back into a regenerative style of farming, and it's already been proved that those farmers that do have much greater success, much healthier yields, and it's less expensive than if you're buying all of these chemicals and you end up needing more water because the roots are shorter. The difference between buying organic or biodynamic food and buying food that is sprayed is just shocking, from how nutrient rich the food is to how thick the skins are, because the plant is trying to protect itself from the poison that the farmer is putting on it. So naturally, everything gets very thick and tasteless. And so I think that we were put on this planet to be the shepherds of this planet, to help protect the planet and all life on it. And when we start realizing that that's why we exist, and every decision that we make has to factor that in, the world would be a better place.
I agree.
Me too.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for joining us today on this auspicious occasion, being Earth Day. You guys are really leading, and as you said, it is changing. People are beginning to wake up, and if you listen to your inner voice, which is closest to your creator, you know what the right answer is, you know what to do. So just do it, and then each one teach one. Thank you so much, and be well. Think peace.